Ice Cave Radio, episode number 41. Doa in transit still. He's heading to Tatooine itself, or close, at least Tatooine adjacent. He is not here. Flake is here with you. Charmer as well. So we dive into all things Star Wars Unlimited, but so much more. It's the extra value that just really drives this show home, Charmer. All that extra value.
Yeah. I don't know that I would describe it as extra value, but I will take it. I would describe it as a yin and yang of sorts, right? Like you are the light that lights up the community, and I am the darkness that depresses us all. And just like the Force, you need that light and dark to be whole.
Hey, 1 out of 2 ain't bad. I'll let you decide which one it is, but you're betting 500. Those are Hall of Fame numbers, man. But yes, it is in fact a Star Wars Unlimited podcast. That's what we talk about. And there's a lot.
Yeah. I guess we should clarify that, huh?
Oh.
I did see in our Discord somebody was like, "Hey, this was recommended to me, but what kind of podcast are you? Like just Unlimited, Star Wars in general?" And the actual answer to that is we have no idea.
No, we don't.
I mean, it's meant to be Star Wars Unlimited, but
I believe that the description I said was, or the answer I gave to that question was basically, I wish I could tell you. I wish I could give you a definitive answer that how, we are definitely a Star Wars Unlimited podcast, but we try so damn hard to stay on the rails, and sometimes it's just impossible. But that is not the question of the day. There is a question of the week, Charmer.
There is, of course, our cave poll of the week.
So our cave poll this week was a little bit of, I'll say, kind of like a litmus test to a degree. I kind of wanted to put the feelers out there because now that there's tournaments popping up, I have had conversations with various store owners in North America, in the States, and Canada about making big tournaments, etc. I've driven in the past month or two. I've driven 10 plus hours to Philadelphia, to Hartford, to attend tournaments that had no business or no chance of even placing in, but they're all for fun. So this week's cave poll, which is available every Sunday at Ice Cave Radio on Twitter, is such: how would sorry, I already messed it up. Nice, that's all right. Here is the cave poll, clean and clear. How big would the prize pool in US dollars have to be for you to drive 10 hours to attend a Star Wars Unlimited tournament? Now, the pricing brackets are $0 to $999, $1,000 to $249.9, $2,500 to $49.99, or $5,000 plus. That is it. You're locked in and saying, I'm going to attend this tournament because the prize pool is X amount, and I've got to drive 10 hours there and 10 hours back. So, Charmer, for you, and I did get the reply saying that Midwesterners will have a completely different skew on this one. So what is your answer for this?
The person who said Midwesterners will have a different answer for this, is 100% correct. But as a Midwesterner, I am an exception, not the rule. I am an outlier. I selected 5,000 plus, but for those of you who don't know, or you're just, new to me in general, it's a well-known fact that I have this thing that I call car-colepsy. It's like narcolepsy, except for if I get in any moving vehicle, I have a very hard time staying awake. I am the kind of guy that can fall asleep on a plane before it takes off. If I get in a car and it's a long trip, I will just conk out. Like I have to actively fight to stay awake. And this is true even if I'm driving. It's not just I'm bored thing. It's just something about cars or moving vehicles, the vibration, the sound, whatever, puts me out. So if it's like, it would be a 10-hour drive, for me, that's going to end up being more like 13 to 14 because I'm going to have to make frequent stops, get out, stretch my legs, wake up. That's a lot. So I'm biased. For me, it's got to be a big amount. Or at that point, I would just consider flying, largely because the driving is an issue. So for me, I selected $5,000. Now, I will say, however, if I had a friend that could do the driving, then it would probably be less for me. But I can't stay awake. And if I'm the one that's responsible for driving, we're going to have a problem.
Okay, well that's fair. So you said 5K more, but again, there's some health related, I guess, parts of that. I can't drive for very long because I have back issues. I have like bad back, so it becomes just flat out painful for me to do so. I do it anyways because I'm a glutton for card games. I believe I selected 2,500 to 49.99 because that's more or less what I travel for most tournaments as it is already. Be it smaller 2Ks, 3Ks, up to maybe a 5K. I'll travel a lot. I just enjoy it because this is my whole life. I also do not have the same amount of dependence that you do. I don't even have a plant. If I leave, there's a pigeon that will be like, hey, that loser's not here. Doesn't matter. I'm still going to crap on your balcony and leave. But that's the majority of what basically waits for me. I fed that freaking pigeon, by the way, a variety of different things. I gave it quinoa, didn't want it. I gave it crushed up corn chips, didn't want it. I gave it softer pita bread, didn't want it. So now I'm not feeding it anymore. I might give it some lettuce because I still feel bad, but that pigeon,
you just got to get like a small amount of actual bird seed that's meant for birds.
I'm not spending
like
a dime.
fairy dust.
I am already.
I didn't say purchase it. I just said acquire it.
Do you know
the rest is up to you?
My legal bill for getting this work visa thing settled is unreasonable but necessary. So I am not spending a single dime. I'm already in the hole for just, I have to pay to work. Like that's where this is the most ridiculous thing where I have to pay. I feel like a US student, like with a student loan. Yeah. That's kind of where it is. I'm like, I have to work to pay for my education, which I needed to work, which is so weird. That's a whole other discussion. All right, so here are the results. I selected the 2,500. You said the 5,000 plus. I think both are reasonable. In the lead is 5,000 plus by a fairly twice the margin as the next, which is 48.8%. Second place is 2,500 plus, which is 24.4%. And then 13.8 was 1,000 to 2,400. And then 0 to 1,000 was 13%. So more or less, obviously, the higher it goes, people are more likely to sort of get in the car and fill a Tercel and make the drive, as it were. But I like this because there's still a decent amount of people who would say, you know what, it doesn't have to be a super premier event. And that's part of it because I like when I drove to Hartford or when I drove to Philadelphia, I didn't have any sniff at winning any of those tournaments. I just wanted to play. So that is part of it.
Yeah, I think that's entirely fair. As I said, for me, if I had somebody that I could ride with, then my value comes way down. I would sit in a car, right, for 10 hours both ways for the 1,000 to 2,500 benchmark. It's just the me driving that's the problem.
That's fair. Now, that's also noted was when Charmer's like, hey, don't worry, I got this. Now you know not to jump in the car unless you've got a Red Bull in your back pocket.
It's fine if it's anything that is like less than an hour and a half. Sure. Hour and a half is about where I have to start making a stop, or it's going to be a problem.
All right, so let's get to the headlines. By the way, the Ice Cave Radio poll is available every Sunday at Ice Cave Radio, and you can talk about it as well on the Discord. So let's talk about the headlines. First headline is this, Charmer. We received a plethora of wampas in the mail from lovely, lovely listeners who have decided to reach out and say they want to donate the wampas to the cause. These are going to be kind of like our business cards to a degree. I know that you and I and Doe are going to get together and, I guess, scribble on them. But at our first event, we're going to be giving away a whole bunch of these. But thank you very much to everybody for submitting all of your lovely wampas to the cause, which is nice. Second one is that the biggest tournament to date occurred this past weekend, a little while ago, which is 222 players playing in the launch event in the UK, which was huge.
Yes.
It is huge for various reasons. And but before we get to the meta aspect, which is basically what we're going to be talking about today, I want to just take a quick little gander here at the prizing for this tournament, because I thought it was pretty significant. And I know that you and I have discussed product versus money, and we had discussed the fact that, you know what, when this game comes out, Everybody's going to want product. So something like this is very tantalizing. I think that that's still true. However, I do still believe that eventually big tournaments are going to be more driven by financial reward. But
yeah. So I'll have you run through the pricing, and then I think, further expand on that just real quick, because I do feel like there might be some folks that are listening or watching that might wonder, like, why would you not want a bunch of product? And
sure.
There's valid reasons for that.
Yes, and we have discussed this in the past, but we'll retouch upon it. So here's how the pricing worked. Essentially, if you were top 64, so everybody gets 5 packs for showing up. 5 packs, congratulations, sweet deal. Depending on what the entry fee was, if entry fee was like $30 or less, you're probably coming out pretty decent already. If you're top 64, another 5 packs. Top 32, a booster box. 16, 2 booster boxes. If you hit the top 8, 4 booster boxes. If you manage to make it to the semifinals, a case. If you finish second, 2 cases. And if you win the whole thing, 24 boxes. So 4 cases of Star Wars Unlimited are yours. That is pretty hefty. I've seen tournaments that are like win a case tournaments that have like 50 or 60 people, especially when a new game comes out or a coveted set comes out. People will really try to win that case. But if you win this, 4 cases, and we've seen a little bit of the hoopla around getting your hands on product. It's not quite the dire straits level as we're at yet, but people still want this product because it's fun to rip and there's some value in some of it. So what are your impressions on this type of prize structure?
So for me, the price structure one is very generous. And I think that this is the right time. I would maybe even say the perfect time to run this style of event because the game is so new. And there are some things that you can kind of infer from some of these, right? So obviously no guarantee, but if first place is 24 boxes, showcases are 1 in 12. So you could also say first place is getting the equivalent of like a bunch of stuff in 2 showcases, which is also pretty nice. There's a bunch of other ways that you could interpret this. My biggest issue, though, and this is what I wanted to expand upon, is that once the game is no longer new, even when you're talking about a new set, right? Maybe they want to do this for set 2, set 3, set 4. The problem with something like this is that it feels less generous over time. This feels very, very good right now because everybody's trying to get their hand on their, play sets of stuff and kind of set the baseline for their collection moving forward. But if you are somebody who's competing in an event like this, chances are you already have a decent collection because you wanted to put together the most competitive deck that you could. So you've already opened a fair amount of product. Now, let's say you win it, right? Like, let's say I'm playing in it and I win 4 cases, 24 boxes. How much more of that do I want to actually even open for myself? And then that comes down to, well, do I want to open it and flip it all as singles, or do I just want to flip the sealed product? Do I want to put, 1 or 2 boxes away for drafting or whatever? But all of those answers are also just giving me homework. This is my biggest complaint, right? When you have cash prizes, the homework's already done. I just have cash in hand. I can do whatever I want. But if I win a bunch of product and I already have a decent enough collection where I had at least 1 competitive deck, yeah, there's some stuff I might get, but I either have to sit and open 24 boxes and then sell all the singles. And that might mean going to a local store, but it also could be like listing them on TCG Player, where now I've got to get mailing and go to the post office a bunch. And it's just, it's not what I want to do. Like, I want to play the game. I don't want to have to sell a bunch of stuff. And if you're also wondering, like, well, why would you sell it? Well, the answer is that a lot of people who start to play these games competitively are looking for ways to finance their next event. So, like, if I won this, part of what I would be trying to do personally is figure out a way that I could flip some of it to put some money away for a flight, a hotel, or whatever, so I can go to the next big event. And you're not going to do that. You can't pay for plane tickets with product. As cool as that would be, we're just not at that point. And then you could sell the sealed product, but you've got to, at that point, one, incentivize people to buy it from you instead of their local game stores, which feels personally kind of scummy to me. I hate undercutting my local stores. I want to support them. But also that means you're taking a hit on it as well, right? So like you might flip these for, $50 or $60 a box sealed. You'll get the short-term money, but it's all around just bad. So I think right now this was very generous. When you're looking at it from strictly a product, perspective, this was a very generous prize pool, and I think it was very cool to run it this early in the game's history. But I hope anyway that this is not what the long-term competitive circuit looks like, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, you dissected it pretty well there. And let's say the case retails at like $600 a case, you're getting $2,400 of product USD for winning. That's pretty significant. Winning, $2,400, but it's not $2,400. It's 24 boxes. So in which case, like you said, like if you turned around and flipped the boxes for 80 clean a piece, sure, but like you said, it's 80 clean, assuming that you don't have to ship them anywhere. There's no problems with that. And the value in those boxes are going to exceed that. But like you said, what is your time worth? And I mean, hyperspace cards are in high demand. So even the commons will go for about $2 a piece for even like the commons. The uncommons probably closer to $3 or $4 a piece. The rares are probably about 6 to 7, maybe up to 10, depending on how playable they are. So you can recoup some losses, or you can definitely, but like that means you have to open it all, sort it all, list it all, execute on it all. It's not worth it. So I'm with you here.
I mean, unless you're already a store, right? If
oh,
that's like
sure,
your day-to-day or whatever, then that's a completely different story. I'm just talking about from the perspective of your average player.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
All right. So I think we're both in agreement here. Everybody wants cash money. I mean, that's basically how it goes. But ultimately, what we're going to be talking about is the meta. And the meta, this tournament was won by Mr. Cool. So nice. But the best part about this was, frankly, the fact that it was 8 Boba Fetts in the top 8. So it was Fett Fest 24. So that's cool to see. I don't think anybody was ultimately surprised that Boba Fett would perform well, but I think there are definitely people who are surprised that it was a clean sweep.
I'm surprised that it was a clean sweep. I am not surprised that there are so many. Exactly 8 out of 8 is the surprise. Now, if somebody said like make a wager or whatever, I would have said it's probably going to be more like 5 or 6 Boba Fetts, just based on what I knew before that event. Because I do think, and we're going to jump into this for our main topic, obviously, but I do think that this is potentially misleading on the power level, because while yes, this was a 222 player tournament, it's a very big tournament. There's also something to be said about like the regionality. Like this was ultimately still kind of like a local meta. And when you're doing play testing and things like that, there is sometimes this risk, especially early on in games when you don't have much of a blueprint to work with. There's this like weird incestuous byproduct that happens from play testing where, if my group of friends and I are testing and we all land on something that we think is good, and then we run into another group and they're on something similar, then you kind of get that confirmation bias. And the next thing you know, everybody ends up running like variations of the same thing or kind of the same skeleton, and it spreads like wildfire. And also the other bit is, again, very early on, if nobody else has kind of seen that or had the opportunity to say, okay, this is the standard now, how do we beat it? You can catch people by surprise. So I know we'll dive into it more, but
let's dive into it.
I think this is like a bit of a byproduct of the circumstances.
Yeah,
personally.
No, I agree. So we'll dive into the topic right now, which again, this is something that a lot of people were going to wanted to talk about. It's a timely, it's well timed because again, we had the biggest tournament possible, and it was the results were kind of fascinating, at least in the top 8. But I want to break down a little bit of the hero spread here on both ends of the spectrum. Boba Fett, there were 43 of the 222. So a shade under 20%, 19.37% were Boba Fett. Sabine, 32. Vader, 26th. Iden Versio, 25. Leia, 20. Krennic, 16. Skywalker, 14. Tarkin 8, Chirrut 7, Thrawn 6, Palpatine 5, Solo 5, Grand Inquisitor 4, Hera Syndulla 4, Cassian Andor 4, Chewie 2, and the lone rogue IG-88 player, a single IG. So very high skewed towards Fett and Sabine. The two of them representing about a third of the meta are those two heroes. What I do want to talk about here is that there is obviously this early meta game. So we're talking about the meta here. And I know a lot of people are going to look at the top 8, see 8 Fets, and be like, wow, this sucks. Everybody's already on Fett. Well, a couple weeks ago, everybody wasn't on Fett. Everybody was talking about Sabine and showed up for stuff to beat Sabine. Like, this is what the meta is essentially going to be. And you and I, coming from Flesh and Blood, where there's no digital client, where everything kind of homogenizes in this one giant pot, and then it spits out a global meta because there's an outlet for it. In Flesh and Blood, that doesn't exist. And Talishar, Talishar is not a proper thing to measure against, because even though it's an online client that people can use to play, there's no ranking, there's no nothing. So people go in there, it's like their laboratory to go do some crazy stuff. Yeah. In this case, it's the same thing. Flesh and Blood has regional metas. The one true litmus test for what a meta can be is really when everybody congregates into one place, like a pro tour, like a major event, like the Galactic Championship that's going to be coming, to really put their brains together and say, what can we expect? And we saw this at the pro tour for Flesh and Blood in Los Angeles this past weekend, because a lot of the usual suspects were there, but a lot of dark horses, and that weren't actually dark horses, they were just counterplays, showed up to feast on what everybody thought was going to be there. My suspicion here, Charmer, is the fact that the Boba Fetts are out there to prey on what was popular or what the chatter was that particular week or the week before. So if everybody's saying Sabine, or everybody's saying this or that, and you hear this, you're not bringing this or that. You're bringing what beats this or that. You're bringing the other thing. And I think that that's important to note, because that kind of rock, paper, scissors angling is not something that gets solved early and stays the same, Charmer, until a new set comes out. Because in a regional meta without a single focal point, no nucleus where everyone throws their ingredients in and spits something out, when it's local regionalized metas, this is always going to be the case. It's all rumor and circumstance that people have to react to, and that's what happens here. That's why you get all these Fets and how well they played.
Yeah, well, I think that you kind of hit the nail on the head on the preying on things too. So one of the other things that I wanted to talk about when we did our dive is very specifically why I think this Boba Fett deck rose in this region. When you look at the hero representation, 2 heroes by themselves comprised 1/3 of the entire field, and that was, of course, Boba Fett and Sabine. Prior to the launch of the game, there was a lot of talk about how Sabine was going to be the best deck in the meta, was kind of setting the pace for things. Even after the launch of the game, as people started testing, there was a lot of talk about how she is your litmus test, because she just punishes bad decks. She punishes bad draws. She does what aggro decks are supposed to do. Now, if you are somebody who thinks, okay, I expect to see a bunch of Sabine, you should play something that's probably good into Sabine. And I know that a lot of people have their own theories about how the triangle works. You always hear about like mid-range aggro and control, and one beats the other or whatever. Boba Fett's a bit more of a mid-range deck for Star Wars Unlimited, but it's very good into Sabine. It does a lot of things that Sabine doesn't want it to do. It trades very well. It clamps down the ground. It will be able to use Energy Conversion Lab on a Star Viper to kind of knock out your lone spacecraft and then continue to restore in the air if you maintain initiative. Like, it does a lot of things that can gum up a Sabine player who doesn't know how to play around it, but it also can do a lot of things to Sabine players that are also just trying to go face all the time. I'm not saying that was the case necessarily at this event, but I do know when I've played at the few events I have locally, a lot of Sabine players are just playing and going base and playing and going base, and then they lose control of the ground, and then they lose the game. And Boba Fett will absolutely demolish players that are trying to do that. So when you factor in, you expect a bunch of Sabine. Boba Fett is very good into Sabine, and Boba Fett is very good at punishing other decks that don't understand power spikes. So Star Wars Unlimited also, because of the leaders, gives each deck kind of a game plan for when is it going to try to turn the corner, right? Like when are you going to get the most value? And for Boba Fett, it's, pretty obviously when you hit 5 resources, usually that's your third turn. But again, because of the ramp effects available to green, it can sometimes be sooner. But your ideal play usually is you are playing Boba, you're playing, your beefy 5/5 as well. And now you get to swing with Boba right away. That's a lot of presence. Boba Fett's also very sticky. The 7 health means you can't just like, oops, I hit it with a takedown like you can against the Sabine leader. Yeah, you can take out the 5/5, but then you still have a fully healthy Boba Fett on the field. So you have to have a plan. That's ultimately what it comes down to. I think that the real reason Boba Fett did so well here is, one, it was very good into what was expected to be the most popular deck, which was Sabine. Ended up being second most popular, but it's very good into that. It's very good into decks that don't have a plan against its power spike on 5. And nobody likely had quality time to game plan for this list. I don't think... I would be shocked if we see another, 100+ player tournament that ends with 8 people on Boba Fett as the top 8. I think that this was, right place, right time for this leader.
That's perfectly fair. And we've seen this before in other games where a deck, look at any Magic tournament, especially when new sets come out, everybody will come in and be like, okay, well, this is clearly the winner. 7 of the 8 spots were this Azorius list or this Bant list or something. Like something came out and it just blew everyone away because, it's either people are angling against a particular meta and get rewarded, or it's just this new hotness and there's not enough time, like in this case, to adapt. And that's part of it. And I would highly recommend people don't freak out about these results because they're a new game with limited amount to prepare. The players are still not familiar with it. And I'll be completely honest with you. There's an IG player in there. There's people are probably showing up and don't have everything they need. The Boba players might have everything they need. And I'm not saying that this is a matter of haves and have-nots, but at the same time, I don't know. People might just be going to play the thing that they want to play.
I was just about to say, there's also something to be said, when you talk about popularity, if you're looking at the cool stuff you can do here in set 1, playing Boba Fett and Darth Vader in the same deck is going to be very appealing to a lot of Darkside fans. They're 2 of the most popular characters in the franchise, and the fact that, the legendary Darth Vader can yank Boba Fett is going to be a big draw. I do feel like, there were some people who picked this as a meta thing, but I also feel like some people just started on this list because they just really like Boba Fett or really wanted to play, something on the villainy side. If anything, I think what I'm most surprised about is how little Luke and Chewie that this event had, because I feel like that's the heroism other end of the spectrum. Like when you're trying to look for a good quality mid-range list, it's going to likely be heroism, vigilance, and you're just running stat sticks, right? Just big, hard to get rid of sticky units. I think that's going to end up being better than people give it credit for. I don't think it'll be the best deck, but I'm very surprised at how underrepresented that was at this event.
So we got more clues as to what happened here. And again, a lot of these, I tried to watch some of the tournament. I watched some of the matches. I couldn't catch all of it. I do want to say thank you to everybody who did put that on and available. So I do encourage everyone to go check it out. So here's another clue as to a little bit about what we're seeing and why Boba Fett was so good. And it's the win rates of these leaders. So the number 1 win rate was Boba Fett at 60.74%. to put that into perspective, obviously the mirror matches are always going to be 50-50, so you just discount those. Fett was a 60% winner against the field. That's absurd. That is a crazy good, because that means that even the bad Boba Fett players who were maybe tarnishing these numbers, those good Boba Fett players were probably 80-85% total win rates versus the players who may have just shown up with Boba Fett with incomplete decks and doing their thing. Beyond that, Han Solo, 57.5%. So representation and win rate are completely different here. Han Solo at 57.5%, that's a second cunning leader that is getting its kicks.
But
and
only 5 people on it.
Right. Exactly. That's fascinating. 5 for Han Solo and 5 for the next most winning hero in the tournament, which is Emperor Palpatine at 55%. So to put this in perspective, ladies and gentlemen, if you said, hey, I can give you a deck that has a 55% win rate, I'd be like, snap take immediately all the time. If you can say that there's a ladder system or something where something is on a clip of 55% win rate at high ranks, that is a elite level deck. That 5% is enough to... They ban cards and like nerf cards in other card games when it's like, well, when it's in a deck, that deck typically has a 54 to 56% win rate. It's like, wow, okay, that's definitely overdoing it. So if you have a deck that has a 55 plus win rate, that is an exceptionally good deck. That, just saying, all things considered.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. And again, I just wanted to point out that these win rates, you could look at them a couple of different ways. You could say, okay, well, the Han Solo and the Emperor might be skewed because it might just have been really good players and it's, only 5 people on them each. But I would argue that it's also more telling because all it would take is like 2 bad players to like really mess up your win rate. Also, these are players on Han Solo and Palpatine that had these high win rates without making the top 8 as well. So to me, this says that these are probably some decks that are flying under the radar because they have such a low representation and they did so well. And it's just very telling that, Boba Fett had 43 players and yeah, it's at the top of the pack, but your next best 2 decks were less than 3%, a piece of the representation. So Boba Fett was just positioned very well against what people brought.
It is also worth noting, I mean, like the Boba Fett at 60% or whatever, there's going to be some skew there because of the fact that there's so many of them and they're going to face off each other. There's only 5 Palpatines. I'm wondering how many of those were cannibalizing each other, in which case lower showings, but still, Emperor Palpatine at his 55% is like... There's also, you're going to be very aware of what I'm about to say because I know you're putting in so much work with Palpatine. Depending on the build of Palpatine, it's entirely possible that Palpatine was good into Boba, but was being eaten by the Sabines that didn't do well because I
there's
think
a lot
right.
of Sabines. So like if you're on the Vigilance Palpatine, you can struggle against Sabine. She can definitely outrun you. But then if you're on the Aggression Palpatine, you can do very well against Sabine, but you give up a lot in your Boba Fett matchup. And given that those were, again, 1 and 2 in the field, you kind of have to pick your poison there. So there is, I think, more to the story. But yeah, the Palpatines might have just had that matchup roulette thing too, right?
Yeah, it's tough.
We see that in Flesh and Blood, where if you've got a really polarized matchup, you could be in a field where you're very well positioned on a Guardian, and then if you run into 3 of the 5 prisms in a room, you're gonna have a bad day.
Yeah, that's the difficult aspect of it too, is the fact that if you're Palpatine and you're like, hey, even if you have the soul read on the entire room and you're like, this is going to be Boba Fest 2024, I'm bringing Palpatine with, I don't know, red or my favorite, by the way, right now, I'm coming out and saying it, is Palpatine Cunning. I am working on that, and I think that it's great. Ultimately, if you have the soul read on Boba Fett and you bring the Palpatine list that you think is going to just absolutely dummy all the Boba Fetts, you might be completely right. You're thinking, hey, I've got I've got a deck that cleanly beats that 2-0s, no problem, 20% of the field, plus everything else is like there's easily 80% of the leaders that are don't hold a candle to Palpatine right now. Not to say that they're not going to be good, but right now they're not great. I need to worry about Sabine and Darth Vader. Those are the two. 25% of the field is a challenge, but 75% of the field is a buy. Let's say, and this is obviously a big exaggeration here.
Very reductive, sure.
Correct. That said, if you go to the tournament and you're round 1, you find that Sabine and they roll you, and then you're like, well, crap. Okay, we gotta turn this around. Let's find one of those Boba Fetts. And then your opponent in the 0-1 bracket is a Sabine that lost to one of those Boba Fetts that you're supposed to be paired again. Suddenly, you're 0-2 and you are gooned. And now what happens is that you're winning your matches that you're supposed to win, but you're out of the tournament. You're out of top 8 contention because you 0-2'd. And that's a reality. So your win rate must be sparkling, but you're not getting to the top 8 because of what you said, which is gem roulette, or not gem, whatever it's called. Gem is the tournament pairing system, but it's a complete reality that these things can happen. I don't put too much I don't put too much weight on these numbers for a one tournament as big as it was, because the meta is still early. But I do again want to just caution everybody before they lose their mind about 8 Boba Fetts in the top 8. That is the top 8 for now. Things will change. Things will adapt. The meta is in constant flux because now, Charmer, if you're going to a tournament this weekend, what are you thinking? You're thinking that there's going to be a bunch of people who are going to just lift the list off of the Boba Fett winner, Mr. Cool, and say, how do I beat this? But you're not the only one. So it starts to become a little bit of a mind game, and local metas are always in play.
Yeah, I feel like Boba Fett is beatable. I'll put it that way.
Oh, for sure it is.
It's that question of, is it going to sacrifice enough from your other matchups or not? But Boba Fett is beatable. I'm not panicking quite yet. I'm not panicking, Anakin.
Well, all you got to do is just say, Boba Fett, where? And then turn around and then smash him in his jetpack.
Yeah, I mean, Boba Fett's not going to be worth his salt the moment we get a Sarlacc card.
Oh, yeah, you wait.
You know what I mean?
No, you know what you need? You know what's going to happen? What you need is you get one of those escort skiffs, you get an electro staff, and then you get the side of the sail barge to fling him into, and then the Sarlacc pit. It's a 4-piece combo, frankly. Imagine that's a card. It's like, if your opponent is playing Boba Fett, and you have an electro staff, a Sarlacc, an escort skiff, a weak way.
Yeah. Just remove the leader from the game.
Yeah, the leader is perma exhausted and can't do.
I don't even want them to have the passive effect. If you assemble the 4-piece combo, the leader is just gone from the game.
It's gone.
He is in the Sarlacc pit.
I'm good with that.
That is what it needs to be.
Hey, I just noticed you and I are both wearing really cool shirts.
Yeah, I am wearing my new Pride and Joy. So if you were following along on Twitter, I put some on my own. I put some on the Ice Cave Radio Twitter. But my family and I were in LA this weekend. I was supposed to be there for the Pro Tour, much like Flake was supposed to be there for the Pro Tour.
Yeah.
Neither of us made it to the event.
No, we
both
didn't.
For different reasons. You had, of course, the well-documented undocumented problem, and I had the blizzard that hit Michigan and caused several delays. I got trapped in Chicago for like a day and a half. So I did make it to California, but I did not make it in time for the event. So I took my family to Disneyland. We of course went to Galaxy's Edge, and they had some cool stuff, and I knew I wanted to get me a new zip-up sweatshirt, and they have this cool like Rebel thing that you can get. So you get like the patch and like the insignia. It's kind of like a Rebel bomber jacket, but they added something new recently where you can pay. So I'm doing this. So if you're on YouTube, you can see it. But you can pay to have embroidery done on any of the items that you purchase there in Galaxy's Edge. And it's only $8, Flake. Like when I heard this, I was like, wait, it's at Disneyland and I could do something cool and it's only $8.
It's not $8 not $8
Yeah.
a character. It's $8.
No, it's just $8, right? So like obviously for the merchandise, you're probably overpaying. Like, this is going to be more expensive than a standard hoodie or whatever. But for $8, I can get embroidery done, and they can do it in a bunch of different fonts, including Orabesh. So this is actually Charmer in Orabesh.
So hold on a second. So for $128, you can get a sweater with your name on it.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't even over $100. I think that this was like 60 or 70, and then plus the $8.
I would look if it's
for a personalized in Orabesh, like says Charmer, looks like a uniform thing. I was like, all right, that's worth it. I have to do that. There's no way I'm not doing that now. So yeah, I love this thing. And it's very comfortable.
What if I countered with this? For $25, you can get a Ice Cave Radio t-shirt. So you can show all your friends that there's 3 goons that you listen to on a weekly basis through, and I'm quoting here, Weird of Mouth, not word of mouth, Weird of Mouth, which is a true statement by a wonderful new Wampa in the Cave that has said that. I'd say this. They're not actually for sale yet. We're kind of working on things like that, but I think $25 for a shirt is not like crazy.
I mean, it's less than a Disneyland shirt. So.
Well, no, of course. Like, just let's be real here. I mean, shirts are crazy. First of all, beyond even the cost of going to a concert now, which is unreal. I remember several years ago, probably about 10, 15 years ago, 10, 12 years ago, seeing Incubus meeting the band backstage, having front row center, like, body against the guardrail, watching them in front of me, cost me $150. $150 to meet the band, get autographs, pictures, and then experience the entire concert as the freaking best seat in the house. $150. Now, if I want to sit in the general area pit, $250. Don't meet the band.
Yeah, I was just gonna say 150 barely gets you in the stadium.
Yeah,
at that
not
point.
anymore. You want a T-shirt? $50 for a T-shirt, clown. You want to? Anyways, it might be time. I think it's time.
Are you hitting the button?
I'm hitting the button. All right, you get an option because I love democracy. You get Thrawn or you get Leia. You call it.
I mean, you got to go with Leia. You held that one up first.
I did.
So
I did.
And I'm wearing the Rebel thing. I can't pick the Imperial.
That's true. I went to Harry Tarantula to play an event. Got 5 packs while I was there, which was great. I opened 3 of them. I got a home one. Also, my girlfriend and I were playing and doing a thing where she would open the pack and then would read me the aspects and the numbers and ask me to guess what the cards were. I went 14 for 14 on one pack. 14 for 14.
You know what? That's actually fantastic practice for casting. Like,
that's
all jokes aside, because sometimes with glare or whatever, you can't see the full card. But if you can make out aspects, cost, whatever, like,
so that's precisely there was this epiphany in her eye when she's like, now I get why they hire you and why, like, why there's like, it's not an easy thing. Because I told her, and I said exactly that. I said, not only that, but when the players are holding cards and all you get is the cost and like 10% of the artwork, you need to know what that card is. And yeah, so that we were just practicing for that. All right, so we're ripping open our emergency pack for the day. Our leader is Jyn Erso.
Hey, who is this pack brought to us by?
This pack is brought to us by nobody yet. We're working on things, but if you're interested in sponsoring the podcast,
Chopper Base.
All right, lights, please don't be angry with me. There's a way to do this. That's so yeah, emergency pack is just our way of saying, hey, get back on track there, clown shoe. Why is it like it puts me in such like a there you go. See how like notice
I was
how
gonna say when you hold the pack too close, I think that it is like blocking a sensor or something, and so it's then brightening it.
There we go. So we'll do this. System Patrol Craft, great card. Seasoned Shore Troopers, another good one. But We're looking for the goods, like open fire. We're talking about red.
Fire.
Come on, be nice to me. Why is it like so bright all of a sudden? I don't know. I'm not a doctor. Open fire. I believe that's recruit.
Recruit. Yep. I was gonna say resupply until I saw the cost.
So something. Wilderness fighter. This is a Corellian Corvette, not Corellian Corvette.
Did you know
sorry,
that
YT.
Wilderness Fire? Wilderness Fighter is like a firefighter, but he puts out wildernesses.
Oh, does he? So only we can stop wilderness? Is that what you're saying? The 3 packs we opened were not great. There was no hyperspace cards in like any of the 3. And we got the home one, which was great, but we are waiting for the hotness in these packs. It's coming. Not yet.
Well, it's being guarded by some Gamorrean guards.
They are doing that. The Jawa scavenger with his saboteur might be able to sneak around. But how about the big stuff? Like this. There we go. A hyperspace recruit. Not a resupply, because that would have been so much better. Hyperspace recruit. We like that. Ooh, all right. Kanan Jarrus. We've got hidden compartment.
Smuggling compartment.
Last uncommon is... Ooh, this is the...
Blizzard Assault AT-AT.
That's the one, the 9/9. This one kind of has like trample to a degree.
Yeah.
All right, now we get to the goods. Give me the good stuff. Galactic Ambition. We were talking about this card for a while, actually.
Yeah, I still don't feel like whatever that's about. Oh,
that's nice.
Foil Lando.
Foil Lando. He's just saying, "How you doing there, Chewbacca?" That's what he's doing. He's just welcoming you.
Yeah, Foil Lando was pretty okay.
Telling you how hot your girlfriend is.
Galactic Ambition still, to me, feels like a card that we don't have all of the pieces for yet.
Correct.
Because you have to take a ton of damage to play something early, but, you could play Devastator early, right? But you're going to take a ton of damage. Yeah, you probably kill a unit, likely, lock down space, but then it just gets vanquished. You know what I mean?
I think that honestly, I think that the meta's too fast right now for this card to even be worthwhile. If things slow down, I can definitely see taking 7 damage to jam out a 10/10. But the problem is that like you said, it just gets vanquished. It just gets dealt with, right? Like it. Yeah. So remember a couple episodes we're talking about Chekhov's guns. This might be a Chekhov's gun card. Galactic Ambition.
It has to be.
For sure. This is a clue that something's going to happen. Like, there might be a situation where you can even shield your base. Like, if you can shield your base, this card becomes banana face. Like,
yeah.
If your epic action on your base was, like, give your base a shield, that also gives your opponent an opportunity to swing...
Get rid of it.
Get rid of it. But if they don't, Galactic Ambition just... is a full-on smoke show. This leads me to believe that I think that might be a base down the line.
Yeah, I've thought that for a bit, and it would make a lot of sense because there is the ability to interact in between. It would explain, Galactic Ambition. There are also some like niche points where using the Galactic Ambition could potentially still actually like save you damage. So I was trying to think of scenarios where like if your opponent has a massive unit or something and you are going to cheat. Yeah, if they have a massive unit and you're going to cheat in something like an Avenger or a Devastator to nuke it. It's kind of the same as if you had just taken that damage one time. Maybe you take 1 or 2 more, but you get that comfort of knowing like it's just gone now.
Yeah. Like the thing about this is that what are you playing to see not just the value of this card, but the deck space for this card, the circumstance around it? Because to me, I'm never playing this on an 8-drop. I'm never playing this on a 7-drop, obviously. But this has to be a 9 or 10-drop to even sniff it, to think that this is even...
The reality is like that is going to be... I would be shocked. I'll put it this way. I would be shocked if when that thing does finally become playable, it's not in villainy, vigilance, command. And my reasoning for that is twofold. One, you want the command because you're likely playing ramp anyway. And so if you're already playing the Galactic Ambition to play something faster, the only thing better than that is playing the Galactic Ambition even faster. But I also say vigilance because if we ever get any sort of epic base or something where you're going to put a shield on a base, like that just feels in the vigilance color. But also you need to have a way to restore after you take damage. You know, if you do play Galactic Ambition and you take damage, vigilance has the best way to get that damage off your base, and it's also just got some big fatties like Avenger on the top end. So I really do feel like some sort of, you know, might be Palpatine even, who knows, but some sort of like vigilance, command, villainy, ramp deck with, you know, some choice top end options or choice ways to mitigate the damage you take from Galactic Ambition is where that's going to find a home.
We might down the line see like a 12 cost card or like an 11 or 12 cost card wherein people will say it's not even a matter of taking the damage. It's a matter of I'm not putting 12 resources down. I'm not waiting to see that card.
Right.
So who knows? Like my suspicion here is going to be the Executor is going to be like this absolute just powerhouse of a card that is like, you want this? And you either wait till you get to 12 or 13 resources to play it, or you better be winning the game when this hits the board with Galactic Ambition because you're taking 12 damage to face to get this out. And I'm okay with that. I think that that's perfectly fair because there are going to be decks that are built around healing, built around insulating their life total, wherein, hey, if I can cheat out the Executor on my 7 resource turn, which is turn 6, unless you have ramp, like, we're okay with that. No problem. I'm all right. I think that's fair. Charm Baka.
Let's say.
Yeah, okay.
Let's say your opponent is at full base health and they play a Galactic Ambition and you have no idea what's coming down.
What if it's a 20 cost Star Destroyer? Not Star Destroyer, Death Star. And you just go down to 5 or 10 health left and you've got this floating orb of death. It's a 18/18 triple shielded overwhelm unit that comes in ready. Like, that's possible, you know? And then on the ground, there's a unit or a thing called Shield Generator that says you cannot, that says that the Death Star has Sentinel as long as the thing is available, or that thing is alive on the ground. Look, we're getting into the stupid weeds.
Yeah, I was going to say, you know, it'd be really cool. So another way that this could work, instead of just cheating out really big fat things, is we could in the future get all sorts of like new keywords or effects. Imagine if you get something that's kind of like a version of Grit, but instead we'll call it like Revenge or something, and it's on the villainy cards because it's, you know, revenge. But instead it's like, you know, the unit enters play with an experience token for every damage your base has taken this turn or something, right? So like you could literally pay 7 to just play another 7 cost. Like let's say there's a Darth Maul who, you know, he's like a 3/3, but he has some other keywords and also that. And then you Galactic Ambition Darth Maul in or something, but now he's just this massive unit because of the damage you forced onto your base. There could be, I think, other ways you could make this enticing for players.
Let's tie a bow a little bit on the meta related discussion before we move on to the mailbag. But I guess the takeaways from this is that 8 Boba Fett's doesn't make for an entertaining top 8 necessarily, though the lists were very different. There was a lot of discrepancy. So I think what we take away from here is the fact that 8 Fett's in the top 8, though the decks are all different, means that people know what leaders they anticipated would be at the tournament, and they tailored their decks to taste. There's still so much room for fluctuation And I guess I wouldn't see this necessarily as a bad omen for future metas. I think that this is just merely a snapshot of players knew what they were up against, and they feasted on what that was. So I think that's perfectly okay. I anticipate that the next big tournament is not going to be 8 Fets in the top 8. I think it's going to be like 2 or 3 Fets in the top 8 at most, and you're going to see a whole bunch of other stuff start bubbling up and brewing in.
Yeah, I agree.
However, what if you're that player, one of those 5 players playing Palpatine, and you're there and you're going and you're saying, you know what? I know there's a lot of Fets. I'm so ready for these Fets. I'm pretty sure all the Sabines are going to get clobbered by these Fets. I just got to avoid that one first match. I just got to get past it. Just don't give me a Sabine. And then I look at my pairings, and I look up from my phone, and there's this one doofus with a big dumb grin on his face because he knows who he's up against. And that doofus is playing me. And that doofus is you. And
on Sabine.
On Sabine. Because I'm playing Palpatine, baby. And I don't want to see Sabine. And you know what I say? Do you know what I say, Charmer?
I have a bad feeling about this.
I got a bad feeling about this.
I have a bad feeling about this.
I've got a bad feeling about it.
Quiet.
That is correct. Partially because, yes, I know that I'm going to lose this matchup, most likely. It's a little bit of the antidote to the Palpatine strain that's going around. But worse than that, I got to listen to you for 3 rounds.
Yeah.
So that is in itself already. I'll take the L. It's a moral L. But let's get to the mailbag, friends. It's the Bad Feeling Mailbag. You can go ahead and email us at icecaveradio@gmail.com. You can go ahead and drop your questions in our Discord, which is bumping. We've got a Bad Feeling Mailbag channel. We get questions there all the time. Many of those questions appear right here on this program. And I'm going to lead us off, Charmer, with the first question from Cerulean Reap, saying, as an additional note, when do you think we might start seeing previews for Set 2? Has FFG approached you with anything? ? That is, of course, something you could say at this time. Aha. The burden of the NDA. Just chewing at our heels.
So they have, I mean, I don't know if this has happened with Flake or with Doa, but they have approached me with something. You know, the part of the question was, have FFG approached you with anything? They did, in fact, approach me with a restraining order to cease and desist. Please stop calling. We no, I'm just kidding.
I mean, these are all perfectly.
Yeah.
I'd be like, sign me up. I'd sign that paper. Yeah. So we have not, and we're not. This isn't a swerve. This isn't a psyop. We have not been approached with anything regarding Set 2. Based on their schedule of 3 sets a year, we are not anticipating a new set till July. So my thought is that we're probably not seeing any spoilers till at least May. In terms of like, oh, here's some card drops. We might get 1 or 2 in April just to keep us.
I was gonna say, I think we get 2 in April, and I think we get 1 very soon. This is gonna be my hot take. I think we get an April Fool's reveal where they're gonna reveal something, and everyone will think it'll be April Fool's, but it'll be the first teaser.
Oh, those punks! I hope not. I hate April Fools. I mean, there's clever ways to do it, but ultimately, yeah. I can see like 1 or 2 just to keep us nibbling at the hook. But once May rolls around, I anticipate it's gonna be again the steady stream. I think that their reveal campaign for Spark of the Rebellion was exquisite. I thought it was very well paced, very well timed. Yep. Other card games that were kind of like, here's a whole bunch of stuff, and then radio silence for like a week or 2, not good. They did a very good job of just kind of spoon feeding us and keeping us coming back for more. So the difference is what people are going to start to realize is that if they are anticipating another 255 card set, or if that's what's coming around the bend, 2 months for 255 cards, that's like a lot of cards a day. Not like in the past where we would get maybe 5 a week or something like that, or 3 or 4 a week. this is a whole different story, man. This is going to be an avalanche of cards. So maybe I'm thinking closer to five cards in April, maybe 10, and then we get absolutely inundated as May and June are going to be this avalanche of information.
Yeah, I don't think that it'll be as large a set one. And again, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it will be. All of these sets are supposed to be draftable as far as I know as well, and so forth. But I would not be shocked if instead we're closer, plus or minus here or there, but closer to the 150, 160 range. And if that's the case, then you could get away with doing, 2 cards a day for 2 months or whatever, 2.5 months. I think that makes the most sense. Or there's also the other part, right? Or they could just do less, because I'm thinking about our creator event where they threw us to the wolves and there was still a lot of stuff that wasn't revealed. So it's entirely possible they could do a drip campaign but still leave 20 or 30 cards unrevealed for launch day, just to have that level of excitement about, like, I want to see what's still in it. That's another possibility.
So one of my criticisms about Flesh and Blood's reveal campaign is I think they do an exquisite job up until the point where they allow certain people to just break boxes. So it becomes a race to whoever can put out a video of them cracking a case where they're finding the new cards, and all of a sudden you're like, the joy of that discovery comes down to a grainy cell phone video from some person who just got permission to open a case ahead of time. So all of a sudden, here's some more Majestics, here's some more commons that we didn't see. And the big reveal, which is the most exciting part of Flesh and Blood, is that they never spoil the Fabled, which is essentially the major chase card. It's like the 1 out of 4 cases card that you're looking for.
Right.
They never reveal that. They allow that to be found by somebody out in the field. And in the past, the excitement came from somebody at the launch event in a crowd of hundreds of people playing a sealed will find it. Everybody cheers. That person gets their 15 minutes of fame. It's amazing. It's a great experience. But now that's kind of robbed because somebody busted a case or two, or they'll open boxes until they find it so that they can post the low res picture of it with their greasy fingernails on Twitter, and then that's where it goes. What I'm seeing with this, and I agree, I really liked the fact that there was something left to the imagination, but I think the reality of things are now, Charmer, is that card games aren't necessarily just a for fun thing anymore. A lot of people take this very seriously. So much like that creator event in New Zealand for Flesh and Blood, where everybody went absolutely, bananas crazy because a dozen people got to look at the cards 3 days before everyone else did, and cited this is an unfair competitive advantage, wherein none of those players did anything in any tournaments afterwards.
Yeah, because they were not playtesting once they got the cards. They were shearing sheep.
That is correct, which was a very awesome experience. But all this to say is that there is a demographic, a very large demographic of people who take this game, and the competitive nature of it very seriously. So they want to know everything in advance so they can start going on, SWODB, making deck lists, doing that kind of thing. I'm one of them. That's part of it.
Yeah.
Trust me, when I opened that Gorilla Attack Pod, that was the first time I opened that. When you opened Force Lightning, when Doa opened Bombing Run, these were all never before seen cards. I tweeted it out and it was exciting. I was like, take a look at this. It's a brand new card. That's amazing. I want that experience to be had by everybody, by the people at, either the people at the pre-releases or just not at all, but you know what I mean? I want it either everything to be known with maybe the showcase artwork hidden. So that is the big reveal. But I don't want it to be reserved for privileged people like yourself, like myself, who get to go to these community events. The coolest thing, Charmer, was when I was at the Tales of Aria launch event or the Uprising launch event. It was that something like that, or the Tales of Aria launch event. The person who opened the Korshem the Fabled. It had never been seen. Somebody opened it in a convention hall of like 400 or 500 people playing this event, and everybody in the hall celebrated. They all cheered. They all applauded. They all cheered. They all applauded. Everybody got to share their goods, and that's what I want for everybody. I don't want it to be hidden behind just a store owner or a whale who busted cases until they got to take that photograph. But that's just me.
I don't know if I froze on your end or not. But...
You did, but I think we recovered. We'll edit that out.
No, we don't have to. I can just look like an idiot. I couldn't tell if it was on my side or not. But
well, we can't edit that out. I'm sorry. The idiot part is not edited on it.
I know, right? I definitely can't get rid of that. Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I would say if they do reveal everything ahead of time, then I would prefer that they don't reveal the showcases.
Yes.
And have those just be found.
Yes, I really want that to be like the Easter eggs that everybody's hunting for. Like, oh, did we see the new, whatever hey, did you see the Mandalorian showcase yet? No, it hasn't been opened yet. Ooh, okay. Like, there's still a buzz. There's definitely a buzz. And there's also a hunt for that card. It entices people to rip packs to find it, to be to find that Wonka ticket.
Yeah, I was also going to say that if we get lucky, it's also entirely possible that we just have events like the creator event where it's still before the official launch, right? So like maybe they don't reveal everything up until pre-release season, right? Because those are still not meant to be like hyper competitive. Like obviously you still want to do well and compete or whatever, but it's not, like a calling level event or something like that. So I could also see them just saying like, okay, up until the pre-release point, there might be some stuff unrevealed.
All right, let's go to the next one. What we got?
All right, so the next one that we have is a question that comes from Twitter. This is UA Ricky. They say, most underrated leader that you would like to see more played. Best deck tech against Boba, ? Is Boba actually dominating the meta? The recent Poland Showdown has a very diverse top 8 deck lists. Very interesting. So obviously Ricky here is comparing the London event to the previous event where there was a lot more diversity. So they're, essentially saying, is Boba Fett a boogeyman? I think we've covered that pretty well, that neither you or I think so. But also, what is the leader that you think is either most underrated or you would like to see played more?
In testing Palpatine with Doa, we were in the lab a couple days ago, just goofing around. We both kind of, to a degree, agreed that if things maintain this kind of cyclical nature of this tide that goes from, okay, Sabine's the boogeyman, what beats that? Now that's the boogeyman, what beats that? If it's this constant shift and influx, at a certain point, I think we're closer to Palpatine. I know that this is, listen, I absolutely know that I'm a goon like this, that I'm a Palpatine simp. Yes, 100%. I totally know that. However, I think that Palpatine can beat Boba Fett. I think it beats it pretty decently. Does it beat everything else? I think that I would love to see more Palpatine played because Palpatine is the end of the spectrum, whereas Sabine might be the aggro end of the spectrum. Palpatine is on the completely other end of the galaxy as being more of a control. And I think that I don't like metas that hover, that never cross like the middle ground. That if they're always leaning towards, hey, we're a 10 on 10 aggro, but now the meta says that we should be a 5 on 10 aggro. I don't want that. I want to be crossover to the other side, as it were. I want that Palpatine control-oriented list, much like, for example, even a Chewie list. I think that a Chewie list is another one that I would love to see gain a little bit more notoriety and a little bit more fanfare because of the fact that it can just drop Sentinels and just stuff decks that want to go face and really cause a problem.
I agree with you on Chewie. So that was going to be my answer. And the reason that I would like to see Chewie played more is because as the game grows and hopefully we get more tournaments that are broadcasted, I think as a spectator, watching somebody pilot Chewie well is very entertaining because Chewie's ability is great. As you said, you can just slam down sentinels, you can stuff aggro decks, but it's also a very, very good disruptive tool if you know what your opponent is trying to do or you can anticipate it, right? So if you can see, hey, they've got 3 units and they attack with, unit A first. And so now okay, it'll be B and then C. But I've got this 1/4 unit that if I just wait till after B attacks, but it will make C basically useless, I can jam this in here and catch him by surprise, right? You don't have to jam the Sentinel down first. His leader ability and to be honest, a lot of the stuff that would go in his deck are all very sequence oriented. I think that's why players are perhaps struggling with him out of the, get go for the game. I would like to see him represented more. I think that he's a lot better than he looks. And I really, really think that as a spectator, if you watch somebody good with him pilot and use the ability to stuff at the right time, because it's not even just stopping them from hitting face, right? Like if they attack a unit and then that they're going to do a follow-up because they wanted to clear one of your best units off the board, right? Throwing something in the way of your best unit is also very, very relevant. He's a leader that I think rewards players for understanding the mechanics of the game. And I do think we're going to see more of him over time.
And again, this is going to be more from a greedy broadcaster perspective. Thrawn is another one I would love to see because it's entertaining to see these decks in action. I like, winning is cool, but I like what I say. I like decks that are good TV, and decks like Palpatine are good TV. Decks like Thrawn are good TV, and I suppose like a deck like Chirrut is also good TV. Though I wouldn't even know how the hell to use it. The other hero that I've been messing with, and I'm still convinced is probably one of the best limited leaders, is Grand Moff Tarkin. I've been playing with a Tarkin Town deck. I call it Man About Town because he's Tarkin in Tarkin Town.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a genius that way. I love this deck. I played it against Doa and beat Doa with this Tarkin list, which is so good. It's just cheap stuff. If it's stuff that you just on turn 1 you drop a TIE fighter or a stormtrooper, you buff it up. You don't care about initiative because they're gonna have a bad value trade into something. Flips on 5, does some good stuff. You want to be flipping on 5. Doesn't necessarily do a lot of damage, but it creates enough of a ruckus.
He's sticky. That's the big thing on turn 5. If you can play something that's cheaper, right? Uses activated ability, then deploy, then get the attack. So you get like the double buff on top of it. And then him having the 7 health. That's where you can kind of turn a corner with him. If you're talking about decks that are quote unquote good TV, I think that when we finally see somebody like crack Grand Inquisitor and they can make his combo sequencing really work, I think that's going to be good TV because you're going to just see like a whirlwind of Sith swinging and swinging and swinging. I think that he has a lot of potential.
Alrighty. So we have plenty of opportunities here to have some fun decks that we would love to pop out. Cerulean Reap. Great. Friend of the show. Excuse me, for sure. Friend of the show. Asking also, I've seen that there's now an upcoming tournament in America with a $5,000 prize. Will we be going? That, I believe, is the Richmond, Virginia tournament that is happening in May 3rd through 5th. Also, what previous tournament experiences have you had, and what recommendations would you make for people attending? So I think that this is actually episode worthy. Like, I think that there is a hell of a lot of tips and tricks of not just strategy, but just for attending a tournament. If you're going to spend a whole day or 2 days at a major tournament, there is a lot that you need to know to maximize your experience.
Well, and I would go a step further as well. And if you're somebody who's listening and you say like, hey, I really love the game, but being hyper competitive isn't for me. The good news is you can still have a lot of fun at these events. And I also think it would be, in that same episode worth highlighting the things that you can do if you're more casual oriented, right? And it's one of those things where if you just don't want to play in the big event because you get, anxiety, right? Something like that. There are usually a lot of people playing pickup games and, obviously we don't know what a Star Wars Unlimited event looks like, but speaking about other card games I go, there's usually cosplay and side events and scavenger hunts, all sorts of weird stuff. You meet a bunch of people who all love the same thing that you love. I do think that we should cover both how you navigate a tournament weekend for like maximizing your time spent, but also, if you're somebody who's never been to one, maybe just kind of doing an overview of the types of things you can even do at an event, because it's not just play the game.
So when I write the pre-tournament articles for Pro Tours and Worlds, I always include a section on pro tips for big tournaments. And I'm not going to spoil them now because it'll be an episode, but I will say this. My favorite line that I always write falls under the category, which is respecting your opponent. And I always close it off with good hygiene is part of a broader respect for humanity. So that is definitely something to keep in mind. All right. That does it. I think that we've got a good episode down the pipe as well, as tournament season will eventually come around. I mean, this is something that when the Galactic Championship rolls out, you probably would love to get some of these tips locked down. If you're just going for a 4 or 5 hour tournament at your LGS, you don't need this. You eat before, you're comfortable, have a good time, you drive home, no big deal. But if you're traveling and it's a full day affair, there's a lot of nastiness to navigate. So,
yep.
All right. There we go. That's an episode. That's it. This is it, Banya. This is the meal. And we did crumble crackers. It's pretty good. It's no dinner at Mendy's, okay? I'm not going to go out here and tell you you got dinner at Mendy's, but you did get a suit, and now you're getting soup.
If you're one of our younger listeners, Flake is referring to a show that probably was released before you were born.
Yes, it was. I mean, that show was like, mid-90s through till I think it ended in late in 99 or 2000 maybe. Yeah, so we're a ways away, but it's still priceless. Okay, friends, that's it. If you want to submit to the Bad Feeling Mailbag, you can do so by emailing icecaveradio@gmail.com. You could tweet at me @WatchFlake. You could get this doofus @ThatCharm3R. GGDOA also, who is out and about, and the Discord, friends. The link for the Discord is going to be in the description of this video or this podcast, so go ahead, join us. We are up to about 230 or 240 members in the cave, talking trades, strategy, soup, dogs. We're talking everything. It's great. We're having a good time, loving it. And beyond that, that's it. Just be kind to one another. Thank you so much for joining us here. Charmer, with your brand new cool shirt and everything, lead us out of here in a. I'm gonna throw a curveball at you here. Seinfeldify it if you can. Can you do that? I think you can. I'm counting on you. No, you can't. Okay. Well, we'll think about it for next time, friends. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next time.
May the force be with you.